Well, good morning, everyone. We're just giving a few moments for people to join our webinar. It takes a wee moment for folk to be able to register, so they'll be coming in fits and starts for the next 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll just give them an opportunity to do that. As I say, welcome to our Chat GPT Uncovered webinar. I'm going to do some housekeeping in a moment, just so that we know where we are all about. What I will say is we have 223 people registered for this webinar. That is the most we've had for any panel webinar we've run, so it's going to be exciting to see how many we actually have on the day. But Gary, Gary will introduce himself in a wee while, but Gary runs one of the webinars we provide is on AI, and Gary will tell you himself, it is the most popular webinar that we run. It's the best attended webinar that we have. So there is something in the air about AI, clearly, and it's opportune that we are taking the opportunity today to talk about Chat GPT. So how are we doing for time? That's us on 12 o'clock. So, as I say, folk are still coming in, but we'll give them the opportunity to do that. I'll cover the housekeeping, and then what I'll do is I'll get our very distinguished panel to introduce themselves and their organisations and tell us a bit about themselves and what their organisations do. So, basically, housekeeping first. We are recording the session, and we'll make it available to everyone afterwards. Everyone is on mute to avoid any background noise. You can submit questions to the panel via the portal. Please do so, because we'd be happy to take your questions. Any we can't answer, we'll try and follow up later on, but we will try and get to as many of them as we possibly can. And if, as I say, if not covered anything during the session and you're interested to know more about it, there will be a follow-up, and you can always contact Business Gateway directly. So, just as I say, welcome to all the other folk who've been registering on to this session on Chat GPT Uncovered. So let me just do a wee bit of an intro about what it's all about. We're just talking there about how one of the webinars that we run on AI, it's the most popular one we do. AI, it's all out there, everybody's talking about it. It's shrouded in mystery in many ways. Many business owners across Scotland are probably hesitant about AI, and particularly about Chat GPT. Lots of stories out there about it, and perhaps you're grappling with apprehensions related to trust in technology, perhaps, or that might be teamed with a variety of ethical matters to consider. We want to address those concerns. We want to inspire Scottish business owners to explore the potential of Chat GPT in particular today, and how it might be harnessed for small business success. So we've assembled this webinar, this panel of experts that we've got here today to help us perhaps demystify the world of AI and chatbots and Chat GPT. The panel are going to reflect on success stories and perhaps share some practical tips to make the most of Chat GPT's capabilities and real-world applications, ensuring Scottish business owners stay on top of what is a very evolving, continually evolving digital landscape. And hopefully we'll unearth some of the pros and the cons, and we'll discover how Chat GPT can perhaps streamline operations and boost productivity, as well as gain insights into how to mitigate any potential pitfalls. So let me start by getting the panel to introduce themselves. So I'm going to come to Maya first. Tell us a wee bit about yourself, Maya, and your organisation.
Hello, so I run Planner B VA services. So we're a virtual assistant service. We specialise in working with sustainable and ethical businesses, and we provide a range of digital marketing and also administrative services. So we'll do things like social media, copywriting, email marketing, and then all your behind the scenes things. So often the things that other business owners love to hate doing, and we love to do them. So that's what we do. And we are a little team of 3.
Brilliant, thanks Maya. Mark, can I come to you?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Mark Wilkinson. I am Director for Partnerships and Business Development at the Data Lab, which is Scotland's Innovation Centre for Data and AI. We are a government-funded non-profit, and we're there to support SMEs adopt and engage with both data science talent and then the ability to innovate with data and AI.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Last but not least, Gary.
Thank you, Hugh. My name's Gary Ennis. I run a company called NSDesign. In short, we're a digital training company. We help businesses, especially small, medium enterprises, get to grips with all things digital. Of course, at the moment, we're spending most of our time helping teach and train and advise on the usage of AI. A lot of the viewers today might be familiar with my face. I deliver a lot of sessions for Business Gateway as well. Again, as you've mentioned, the AI one in particular, which we'll flag up a couple of times today.
Great. Thank you all for that introduction. So, without further ado, let's get into some of the kind of topics we want to talk about today. I guess there's, as I say, a lot of noise out there about AI. There's probably a number of common misconceptions about it. What can you tell us some of the common misconceptions about AI that you've had or have encountered? And I'll maybe come to Gary first on that one.
Sure. I think for me, I mean, absolutely, there are loads of misconceptions. People's, what they think of it is maybe based on, what it previously didn't do. It changes so often. For me, a lot of the misconceptions are around the capabilities and the features of Chat GPT specifically. So, for example, a common, sometimes almost cited as an excuse not to use it. It doesn't know anything past 2021, September 2021. Its knowledge is cut off. And yes, that's true on the free version, but the later version now has live internet checking. It can actually get beyond that. A lot of people think, it produces dull, average, run-of-the-mill content. That's true if you give it dull, run-of-the-mill, average input. Again, you can actually train this thing to have personality and to do things in a particular style. And maybe one that a lot of small businesses have asked me about, or I've heard that Google penalizes AI content. Google used to say we penalize AI content, and then of course Google introduced their own Chat GPT alternative called Google Bard, and literally overnight their guidelines changed to say we do not penalize AI content. However, we still require that content to be high value and engaging. And so a lot of these misconceptions that people have, and as I say, sometimes I feel used as an excuse. I'm not going to use this stupid tool. They're based on early versions of the tool, not realizing it has massively improved since those early days. And with a little bit of clarity around that, suddenly the light bulb moment can sometimes come on for a lot of people. Okay.
Maya, as an organization that's using it, what kind of misconceptions perhaps you yourselves have come across?
So I think, well, a big one is that it's just too complicated. People just think it's too complicated, it's too big a kind of mountain to climb. It's harder to learn it than to just continue doing kind of what you're currently doing. But I was speaking to somebody yesterday and they said to me, do you know, I think the easiest way to learn ChatGPT is just to ask ChatGPT how to use it, and it'll just tell you. And if you can do that, you're off. And then, you just kind of learn as you go. You find what works, what doesn't. And then there can be the other end where people go all in on it, and to the point where they think that it's kind of will never make any mistakes and is absolutely completely perfect. And that can be a bit of a misconception too, because sometimes it still does make mistakes. Some things might be outdated, or if you haven't changed the settings, it might be doing American spellings and that kind of thing. And that's where when you're reading somebody's post and you think they've just copied and pasted that from ChatGPT on LinkedIn or whatever it is.
Right. Oh, brilliant. Using the power of Chat GPT against itself. I like that. Fight back. Mark, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think if you're looking at AI as a whole, the human reaction is to fear when they see, films of robots and AIs running wild and taking over the world, and we're all going to be replaced, right? And actually, but we've got our annual conference coming up on the 2nd and 3rd of November, and that's the theme we're running with is, you know, do you believe this is going to enhance humanity or is going to replace humanity? So that kind of replacing of human expertise, I think, is a common misconception. And I think in reality, what you find is that it will help and assist massively people who already have a domain expertise. So rather than replacing skilled creative or technical jobs like copywriting or programming or data science, you'll find that in actual fact those experts can utilize it massively to increase their output. I think one of the things to be conscious of is that if you're coming to it new, there is I think it's building on what Maya said there a little bit in respect of what you call hallucinations. So inaccuracies that get reported back, but they get reported back by Chat GPT and Bard and others with a really authoritative tone, potentially, as part of that feedback. So it's easy if you're not an expert in that area to maybe miss some of these. And then obviously if you're then utilizing them, playing them out as part of your output as an organization, then that's something just to be mindful of. So I think that would be my comment on things to look out for people's things. I think there's also just one last thing on AI in general. We are partnered with the Scottish Government in producing Scotland's AI strategy, and a lot of that is around helping the public understand the benefits of, you know, in some cases, especially in healthcare, right, of using people's data to progress treatments and healthcare. You know, so there's some really great opportunities with AI moving forwards, but obviously there is a tendency sometimes with the public to be cautious about that, and quite rightly so. You know, data privacy and all that has to be in consideration. But I think, you know, we shouldn't jump to the James Bond villain use of the tools, right? There's a lot of really good opportunity here.
Yeah, brilliant. I'd said earlier for the audience, if you've got questions, to post them, and please do. So just building on what you've said there, Mark, about that connection, what you're doing with the government in terms of that AI strategy, we've had a question come in, which I'm going to tackle now if I can. The question is, do you believe there's a potential conflict between the Scottish Government's commitment to an ethical supply chain, for example, expecting suppliers to hold living wage accreditation, while at the same time, some of those businesses could use AI to reduce their headcount or reduce use of freelancers, or they could pay less? Is Scotland's public sector aware of the mixed message that could send? Now, there's a challenging question.
I'm not sure if I should thank the contributor for that question or not, where it's being aimed at me. I hasten to add, I do not work for Scottish Government, okay? So I cannot
Absolutely.
speak for them in any shape or form. We are a government funded body that's there to support. I suppose that there is a flux potentially coming with this, where some jobs will die down, I suppose, as other ones are produced. So, and this will be an evolution, I think, and obviously the ideal is where jobs are replaced by the use of AI and tools like that, at the same rate you get new jobs coming to fill them, and then the challenge then is about retraining. That's the ideal, right? And you know, think job descriptions like prompt engineer is the great example that people jump to just now. When did that start appearing? That's a brand new job.
Yeah.
And reality is that's a reflection of the current interface with things like Chat GPT and Bard. Will that be around in 24 months' time? Probably not, but there'll be a load of other jobs that will be. So you know, I appreciate and I understand the sentiment behind that question. You know, living wage etc. is not something I feel I can talk on, but I do see the potential conflict there as we transition through to this new environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Maya, anything that you wanted to add to that at all?
I think, yeah, I would have agreed with much of what Mark said there about it's still so new, isn't it? We're kind of still seeing the opportunities they will present in terms of jobs, and also the risks to other jobs. So like it is a case in a big way, I think, of kind of seeing how that evolves and how the technology evolves and how we evolve with it as well.
Right. Gary?
Yeah, I think it's an easy thing to say. You know, AI is going to be bad. It will replace jobs. We say this about every new technology that comes along. You know, we had fears about social media and, you know, the internet and, you know, the printing press and the Industrial Revolution and how far back do you want to go? And, you know, throughout all of these examples, they prove to enhance what we do, not replace what we do. And we all as humans evolve to use them better, to use them more efficiently, to not let us be replaced by them. An example of the other day, I saw a job advert from one of the big newspapers, where normally it would have been, you know, a journalist role. This was specifically a junior journalist role with specific AI capability and you know, experience. In as much as these tools will help you do the writing, you still need the journalistic skills, but we want you to pump out more content. It might be, listen, again, it's not just AI, but, you know, in the world today, we're expected to do more with less. And so here are tools to help us, you know, take on that expectation. I certainly don't think the good people of the world will be replaced by these tools.
Good, thank you for that. I'm going to keep with you, Gary. What key skills or resources do small business owners need to effectively integrate Chat GPT into their operations? So,
first of all, I think that every business owner will need these skills, especially small and micro businesses. For me, one of the sectors that will be most beneficially affected by this are the businesses that are kind of single person owner operated. We don't have a team, we don't have advisors on standby, we don't have people we can chat and brainstorm with on a daily basis. And so that's where Chat GPT can come in to be that extra team member. And the skill that's going to be required is kind of loosely summarized as AI literacy. You know, how do we talk to Chat GPT? Mark said a second ago, you know, this new role which has come out of nowhere called a prompt engineer, you know, that just means, can you talk to Chat GPT effectively? Can you use AI effectively? Do you know how to talk to it? And many of the people on today's session will have heard of the phrase GIGO, G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out. The problem that a lot of people are finding right now, and again, it's an excuse that a lot of people use, oh, I've tried it, it's rubbish. Yeah, because you're putting rubbish in and getting rubbish out. You're putting basic stuff in and getting very basic stuff out. And that's because, well, maybe you don't know how to craft a good prompt. Maybe you don't know the best way to stimulate the tool to give you the best response. And one of the things we cover in the monthly webinar through Business Gateway is this concept of a nice simple way of giving detail is to use what we call the triple R prompt: role, request, and results. You know, give ChatGPT a role to take the persona of, give it a detailed request, what do you actually want from it, and dictate the results. You know, it can produce basic text, it can produce a Word document, it can produce a to-do list, it can produce a table, and if you start giving it detail, it will give you better detail out the other end of it. But this is all this AI literacy skill. The last thing, just to quickly say, because again, the best usage of this tool comes when you collaborate with it. If you just say, give us A, B, or C, and it gives you A, B, or C, and you take it and you copy and paste it, it's going to be a fairly low quality piece of output. If it gives you your first draft and you say, love it, but please change paragraph 1, then it gives you draft 2, and then you say, oh, brilliant, but please add a particular case study from a small Scottish business, and then it gives you you're collaborating with the tool to produce a really strong output, which is part machine, part you, and that's what will give people the best output. These are the skills people need to have, and that's why, you know, the monthly session is so busy, because people are beginning to latch on to, you know, the need to know this stuff. So yeah.
Okay. A question here for the panel. What are the most unexpected or creative ways in which you have used Chat GPT? I'm going to come to Maya first on that one.
So I use it a lot in terms of kind of coming up with one-line catchy slogans, snappy kind of call to actions as well. So things like for your email subject line, if I've done an email subject line and I think, oh, this is good, but you know, can I have some alternatives? Then it'll give me alternatives, and then I can kind of mesh them all together to find something that I think is just perfect. Or for call to actions as well on social media posts, especially if you're not a big fan of sales and of kind of asking people, you know, to buy or to sell yourself, using ChatGPT for that is a really good way of doing it, because it will do the call to actions for you, and you can again kind of mesh them together. But it's almost like having a third party do it, and it makes it a little bit easier than doing it yourself. I've also used it for similar kind of for finishing off an application. So I was applying for something and I put in the details of the application, what I'd already written, and said kind of, can you just give me like a one-line snappy something to finish off the application? And it came up with Planner B VA services isn't just great, it's the bee's knees. And I thought, perfect.
Brilliant, brilliant. A question that's come in, and specifically for Maya, if someone was starting out as a VA and wanted, what were your top tips for using Chat GPT as a VA? And the last bit of the question is it worth getting the paid version?
So I tend to use Bard a lot, because it's almost like the paid version in terms of it has access to the internet, but it's free. So that's definitely, if you want the internet version but don't want to pay for it, Bard is a really good alternative. And it's very similar. Yeah, very similar in terms of how to use it. And it's a really great tool, especially for doing research. So if you're starting out in any business, and we often, when we start working with clients, kind of one of the first things that we'll do is kind of a deep dive into their industry, and have a look at competitors, what the landscape's looking like. And ChatGPT is a great way to do that, or Bard, especially the online one, because that will give you the current data rather than up to 2021. And then that will kind of gives you the lay of the land when you're starting any business or working with a new business. And it does that instantly for you, which is so valuable.
Brilliant. Okay. So coming back to this kind of idea of the most unexpected or creative ways in which you've used Chat GPT, Mark, anything you would want to add to that one?
I'm not sure I'm creative enough to add anything of value to this one, but I can tell you a couple of examples. So, well, apart from my 12-year-old boy doing his homework through that, which I had to put a stop to quite quickly. So we have some in-house data scientists, and what they've talked about is it's actually quite effective at being a coding tutor. So if you're experienced in kind of coding languages and you're trying to learn new languages, it's good at doing that. I think building on what Gary said, the feedback from those guys is to, you know, as you could, it's more like conversing with Chat GPT rather than asking it a specific one of questions. So you discuss it with it, you challenge Chat GPT, you ask it to explain different parts or to simplify things. So it's more like having a kind of friendly advisor that you're engaging with. So again, that goes down to asking the right questions and engaging with it effectively. One thing I would say is we had to do the senior team at Data Lab had to do some work to camera for videos to put up on our site. And it was a point when we were going through a funding cycle. And I was asked 5 questions that I needed to go away and prepare for and come back and do the video work the next day. And I did throw 3 of them through Chat GPT, and lo and behold, it was one of those that got picked. So I'm quite happy to defer to Chat GPT as a better source of expertise in some cases when it works. But yeah, a couple of examples there. Yeah.
Brilliant, thanks, Mark. And Gary, apart from, and this will have no meaning for the vast bulk of our audience, but apart from sticking a biker jacket on me at a recent all-staff event for Business Gateway, and then spookily animating a picture of me to speak, what unexpected or creative ways have you used Chat?
Yeah. Well, just to pick up on what Mark said, because it's always worth reminding people, you know, Chat GPT is what is geekily called a large language model. And what we need to remember is language just isn't English. You know, language is, first of all, other languages, you know, French, Spanish, etc. But it's also coding and programming languages as well. So it's great at spitting out, you know, code. It can write HTML pages for you. It can help you with your JavaScript functionality. And a lot of coders absolutely love it as their kind of training partner on that side of things, as Mark has said. But I think to go back to the, you know, creative ways it can be used. For me, sometimes we shouldn't be looking for weird and wonderful ways. We should just be looking for simple, effective ways that it makes our lives better and easier. I don't think you can underestimate the power of this as a tool to help people who aren't simply confident in writing. You know, maybe dyslexia, or maybe just don't like writing, or I've got no confidence in it, so I'm not very good at it, and therefore they might not do much of it. Whereas ChatGPT can simply elevate their game. And suddenly, I mean, I've worked with clients who now really enjoy writing their web content, who hated it before, because they're now collaborating with the tool to do it, and it becomes a joy again. And just one wee last thing, because I know we've got plenty of other questions to get through this session. One of the nicest anecdotes I heard recently was a guy I was working with, and I won't name him for privacy purposes. And while I was there helping on how to use it for business and to write, you know, social media and web type content, I sneakily caught a little glimpse of his ChatGPT history, and he kind of looked a little bit embarrassed and said, "Oh, did you spot that?" And I says, do you mind me asking?" He says, "That's ChatGPT helping me write bedtime stories for my 3-year-old." And I thought, what if there was ever a human usage of this tool? Again, his own admission, I'm not very good at making up stories that impress my 3-year-old. Now my 3-year-old loves my bedtime stories. And I thought, wow, here's us saying it's going to ruin humanity and kill us all. And here's a dad being able to bond better with his young child at night because of this tool. And I think it's those stories that maybe need to be told a little bit more.
That is a lovely story.
Yeah.
Although I can't help but think, can you just pick up a book? Okay. Mark, coming back to you, we kind of touched on this. In your experience, what are the ethical considerations that small business owners should be mindful of when using ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things to consider from that ethical angle, I think. So, first of all, from a data privacy and security perspective, be cognizant of the fact that ChatGPT records everything that is input into it. So you should avoid putting in sensitive or proprietary data or information into that app for a start. The other thing to be mindful of is, you know, it's a relatively new generative AI and ChatGPT and BART is relatively new, right? So it is evolving at a fast pace, but I'll give you an example. So OpenAI, who produced ChatGPT, are currently being sued by some high-profile authors over copyright law. So there's potential infringements there of using ChatGPT outputs in a commercial setting. So you just need to be mindful of that. That's a kind of moving target at the moment, and it's something to be aware of. You wouldn't want to get yourself on the wrong side of that. Another thing that people might not have considered is these large language models, the processing power that's required to drive these outputs, although you get these back instantly and it feels very light touch, I mean, there's a lot of computing power goes into these, so there's a significant carbon dioxide emission and water use every year for these technologies. So the more you use it, the more you're contributing to that impact. And then another one to consider would be bias in responses. So you know, organizations that create their own algorithms work very hard to try and remove natural human biases in the output. But if you think about the fact that these generative AI applications with ChatGPT, BARD or others, their data sources are effectively largely on the internet, and therefore there's really no control over the inherent biases in the data source. So there's a likelihood that these tools are either reflecting or amplifying those biases. So you just need to be aware of that as well. And I think in general, just going back to something I've already mentioned, you can just Google Scotland's AI strategy and you can have a look at the strategy document there, and you can see the kind of ethical stance that Scottish Government and ourselves and others are taking. I mean, there's input from industry, academia and public sector has gone into that strategy. But there's a real ethical stance on how Scotland would like to move forward with AI to create growth, to create better opportunities for citizens and all that things, but within an ethical kind of barrier. So that if that is an area of interest, feel free to kind of dig out that document and have a look at it in more detail.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Maya, can you share an example of where Chat GPT has improved your virtual assistant services, and what tasks can it assist you with most effectively?
So we mainly use AI and ChatGPT in terms of kind of research more than for the writing itself, partly because of the copyright and that issue, and kind of until we see where the lay of the land is there more firmly. But we use it for, a lot of research. So researching in terms of like the client industries, like I've already mentioned, also idea generation, so coming up with ideas for content, whether that's social media, for blogs, for emails, and you can look as well for specific types of content ideas. So if we're working on video content or reels for a client, we can ask it for video content ideas rather than just general content ideas, and really tailor it in. And then you can ask it to generate 30 ideas or however many, and then you can pull out the ones that you think, yeah, that's really exactly what I need, and that'll really fit for our wider goals and our wider strategy. And then content planning as well is another big one. So pulling together like blog plans, and again, you can pull the whole blog plan and then pull out the bits that you think are most relevant and are best, and you can ask it to expand on the areas that you want more detail on. Applications as well, it's kind of funding, awards, things like that, like Mark was mentioning about his questions that he put in. It's great for that kind of thing, especially if, I think sometimes it's hard as when you're running a business to kind of shout about how great you are. Nobody wants to be like, oh, my business is amazing, I should be awarded this funding or whatever it is, and so it's almost easier to do it with ChatGPT because it writes it for you, and it kind of, even though you're still submitting it, it takes it away. It's like a third party's done it for you, and it can be a really great tool for that. Obviously, then read it and add in any of your financials and things that you wouldn't want to put into ChatGPT, but it's can be a really great tool for that kind of thing, for saying how amazing you are when you might not want to say that yourself.
That's really interesting, because I was in a session a few weeks ago, and the point that somebody was making was that in America, people are not backward in coming forward about telling you how great they are. The issue being, in Scotland, we're not good at doing that. So perhaps here's a tool we can use to actually help us to raise our game, say how wonderful we are. Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great point. There's that old anecdote about, if you ask an Irish person, how are you? They'll say, I'm grand. And if you ask a Scottish person, they'll say, I'm not bad. We instantly err on the negative, rather than big ourselves up or blow our own trumpet. And I think there maybe is something in Maya's point that, if the tool helps us write that, then we're maybe a little bit more likely to do a little bit more self-promotion, which at times we absolutely should be doing.
Absolutely. Gary, can you tell us your top 3 plugins for ChatGPT, and which one of the 3 is the must-have, if there is one of the 3 that's a must-have?
Okay, well, first of all, to anybody listening who is wondering what on earth you're asking, the plugins are part of the paid version of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT version 4, if you're a paid for user, you get access to additional components and elements, and one of them is the ability to enhance the capability of ChatGPT by accessing third-party plugins. You've asked me what my top ones are. I'm going to try and look at my live ChatGPT in front of me right now. There's a load of plugins which are fun and a bit great for doing demos and showing the capability. Sometimes they're overkill. Sometimes there's no real value to them. The value of ChatGPT, in my honest opinion, is just using that as a tool, and it's almost in its own right. However, one of the plugins I use is the GoDaddy domain name search, because when I'm working with businesses and we're talking about, what name are you going to come up with? Are you going to be limited? Are you not? Have you registered your domain names? You can have a bit of that discussion live there. there in practice with ChatGPT. You don't need to go to GoDaddy.com or any other domain name providers for impartiality, given this is public sector after all. You know, ChatGPT can give you live domain availability by using a domain name checker plugin. Another one I've played with a few times, which is really quite nice, is a plugin called Diagrams, which basically, if you, ChatGPT is getting better at not just text, but also visual output. There's a whole other discussion. We might touch upon this in just a second about additional capability and additional features. Through one of the plugins, you can get it to export, you know, flowchart diagrams and Venn diagrams. And, you know, if your mind works in kind of, you know, bubble diagrams and what do they call them, wireframes and things like that, you can get it to help you produce that type of content through one of the plugins. So that would be another one I would look at, which is called Diagrams. And then of course there's, if you're like me, if you're geeky like me, and you simply have this tool open 24/7 for a bit of anything and everything, you know, I can ask ChatGPT to start making me rough edits of videos straight onto CapCut, which again is a video editing tool separate to ChatGPT altogether, but there's a plugin for it. So, you know, I can add within ChatGPT, I can say, give me some ideas for an Instagram reel about, you know, AI training for, and through ChatGPT and the plugin, straight away it's given me video examples and drafts that I can then go and further edit and tweak and change later on if I want, actually on the tool directly. So there we go. They would be there. There's 3 plugins that you caught me off guard there with, but 3 that I've used and do use, and I hope maybe give some people some value.
No, brilliant.
But I suppose the wider question for everyone, if you are using that paid for version, somebody asked the question earlier on, is the paid for version worth it? My answer to that would be it depends. Personally, I think it's worth it for the additional value that I get from all of the paid additional features, including plugins. But for some people just using this for different reasons, the answer would be no, just use the free version.
Yeah. And there was a question I spotted come through there. You know, what somebody was asking was, what is Bard that is being mentioned? But I'm guessing Bard is just another AI tool.
Bard is Google's version of ChatGPT. Again, you can use it, and it's very, very similar. It's slightly better for referencing and quoting sources and double checking facts and things like that. But on the whole, it's the same tool.
Okay. Gary, what are the common challenges that small businesses face when implementing ChatGPT, and how can they overcome them?
I think one of the first things is, despite OpenAI, the company behind this, being such a billion-dollar company, you know, multi-billion-dollar company nowadays, I actually think they do a dreadful job of marketing. Their website's really basic. There is virtually no user guide to how to use this type of thing. You know, Maya said, and she's absolutely right, people learn how to use it by just getting stuck in and finding their way. But they themselves don't produce any real formal documentation or kind of, there's bits and bobs, and they blog in a very geeky way about it. And, you know, if you follow all the geeky channels, but for the average small business, it's actually, you know, at first glance, it comes across as quite a complicated, geeky thing. And probably made worse by the fact that there's version 3, which is free, there's version 4, which is paid for, there's plugins. What does that mean? I can use it in Microsoft Bing. Again, it's not simply a go here and use this easy tool. I've heard of people downloading an app and go, I've got it, Gary, I've got the app, and I go and look at it, and I don't know what that is. You've downloaded something which mentions GPT in the name, but it's not Chat GPT you've got. So just be careful, because you're now using a tool which might start charging you money, or, you know, be a little bit unscrupulous with the data. So I think that the challenge for businesses is understanding it, the differences between all the options, how to get it, how to use it, and again, maybe I'll finish with that, the usage of it, you know, because there is no hands-on tutorial, hands-on guidance document. You know, obviously I'll plug Business Gateway webinars, of course I will, but, you know, get better training, you know, spend more time getting better at using this tool, because that's when you'll get the most from it.
Right. Thanks, Gary. Just on that then, in terms of other resources that might be out there, Mark, is there anything from a data lab perspective in terms of additional resources to help businesses, you know, get their heads around this?
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. So just building on what Gary said there, I mean, there's several options here, and I think this is all about awareness of what support is out there for you. So one thing I would suggest would be we have an online community that we launched about 18 months ago. 4,000 active members, I think is where we're about at the moment. So what we do is we do monthly themes. So it might be that one month it's AI in creative services, another month it might be ethics, whatever it may be. So we do panel discussions, podcasts, blogs, all that sort of thing. So we create these frameworks through the year, but reality is the real value of that community for members is when members talk to each other. And what we're seeing is mentor-mentee relationships creating. We're seeing people who are starting that data journey, wanting to get some support, asking questions of the community, and more experienced people helping give them guidance of what to avoid, etc. So, and bear in mind the fluidity of this as a technology, right? It is constantly evolving. So opportunities to stay close to communities, whether that be through Business Gateway or be through Data Lab community, is a really good way of keeping on top of things as they evolve and reaching out to friendly communities that are more than willing to give you a hand. Now, what I would say on top of that is a more formal opportunity to help and support. We recognise, and our role at the Data Lab is to support everyone from those who are just starting their data journey. They're maybe working with Excel at the moment, and that's about it, all the way through to cutting edge innovation with AI, where we connect together data science talent within Scotland's universities, by the way, which is globally competitive. We have conversations with international organisations all the time about coming to Scotland and setting up data science teams here. It's right on our doorstep. It's a really key asset, and as you go through that maturity cycle and you get more confident with innovation yourself, you know, there's an opportunity to draw off that data talent. But all the way that innovation end to the very starting point, we can help hold your hand through that process. And it's not necessarily about everything the Data Lab does. We'll signpost you out to other people who are maybe better positioned at particular points in that journey. But a good starting point would be online education. So we have online courses available. You can do them at your own pace. They're relatively light touch. And there's one we're about to launch, and we're just taking pre-registrations with it next week. We're starting, called Driving Value from AI, and that really helps you. One, it kind of busts a few myths, similar to what we kind of touched on at the start of this conversation, but it also helps you kind of navigate your way through the tools that are out there, and which are ones to avoid and which are ones to kind of go with. So that's just one of the courses. We've got a lot more that help maybe people with data management front end. I'm a true believer that, you know, if you get your data right at the start, that's what you can then build on. To the point Gary talked about garbage in, garbage out. Your own data is important with AI going forward, not just internet data. So the more you can get in place a strategy for data that aligns with your organization's goals and objectives, the stronger base you give yourself to utilize that to create cost efficiencies in your business, to create growth opportunities, and potentially help you create new products or services to sell. So we're here to help on that. There's some really good tools and support available front end. And I'm going to quickly jump in with a pitch here as well, Hugh. So we talked about the conference that's coming up next week, 2-day conference. Amazing international speakers and panel members. Did you know that the Pope and the Vatican have got an AI advisor? Well, now you do, because he's going to be there next week. So who'd have thought it? So wow. if the Pope and the Vatican think there's a benefit in AI, maybe we should all be looking at that. So we have representation there. We have NASA coming along like we did last year. We have lots of talk about healthcare. Chat GPT has mentioned some of the panels, etc. So a real opportunity to learn. Now, when I was speaking to Hugh before this, I did say, Hugh, I'll get you a 30% discount for the audience. I'm going to suggest that in actual fact, I'm going to provide you with a code for 100 free tickets to DataFest next week. We're really keen to get you guys along in the SME sector. Gary, I'll put your name on one of them. You're more than welcome to have one as well. Yeah, but we're really keen for SMEs to come and join what's going on there, see the buzz. It's a really good mix of. We're going to have some school kids there as well, actually. But there's a really good mix of public sector, private sector, and academics, and it's a really interesting, genuinely interesting talks and panel discussions. We have sponsors, but we don't give them keynote space on stage. So it means we have really interesting keynotes, and we pull them in, like I say, from all over the world. So the offer is going to be there on the table. It is a first come, first served. Bear in mind, we are getting to the final stages of tickets and capacity. So the quicker you can take that offer up, the more likely you are to get in there. So just something to think about. We're inviting you into the community to give you support if you're starting the journey, or you're further down the route and you're more mature and you're ready to innovate at the cutting edge. Wherever you are, we want to have you as part of the ecosystem. We want to give you the support and help you move forward.
That is a terrific offer. Thank you for that, Mark. We'll get that link out as part of the follow-up for the webinar today. And obviously, if you've got a link for your other resources you were talking about in terms of the training, give us that and we'll get that sorted out to folk as well. Brilliant. Absolutely super. Ooh, this is going well. Grand. Okay, so Maya, I'm going to come back to you. What advice would you have for small business owners who may be new to Chat GPT and looking to integrate into their services? What advice would you offer folk?
So I mean, obviously we've just talked about kind of some of the resources that are out there. So definitely if you're feeling nervous, I would say start there. Also start small, choose kind of one area that you're finding challenging in your business that you can, even if that's, you know, your subject line for your next email newsletter or something really tiny, and just start small rather than trying to do everything at once, do a massive whole plan for your business or whatever it is. Just choose one small area and use it there. And then you do learn as you go, and you can also ask ChatGPT to help you to learn. I would say also just make sure you're proofreading everything. Proofread everything that it generates, and like don't be afraid to then go back and kind of add in things. Spend the time. Don't just copying and pasting it like it's fine, and proofread it. Also, isn't going and add any anecdotes or jokes or things that kind of relate back to your business or relate back to your personal experience that AI is never going to know. I'd also kind of on a really practical level say about turning off chat history. So that then means that your data shouldn't be used to train the AI model. And so for me, from a data perspective, I always turn that off, and just in terms of as much data security as you can have, turning that off. And just, yeah, like we've already said, being wary about sharing any confidential information, and just adding that in afterwards. Yeah.
So I think you've said before, Gary, it's helpful to produce a first draft, but then you've got to personalize it.
Absolutely.
You've got to build on it.
Totally. The other thing, just to quickly, if I'm able to, Hugh, Maya said there, and I completely agree, you know, for a lot of small businesses, early stage, just pick one aspect of your business that you're needing a bit of a hand with or a challenge with, or and to go back to overlap that with Mark's chat about, you know, a lot of small businesses first foray into the world of data is with spreadsheets. You know, one of my favorite demos to show people is how AI can help you analyze your own existing spreadsheets. Again, with caution, with being aware of the data and uploading that into the system and into the cloud and all the rest of it. But you know, the paid for version of ChatGPT 4 does some amazing things, analyzing small or absolutely huge meaty spreadsheets to give you insight and help you spot trends within them. And you know, you can upload your spreadsheet and just say, create me some graphs about this stuff, so that it's got some real clever, simple data analysis. That again, small businesses, often data isn't their cup of tea. It should be, because it's so important, but when you start showing them tools to interrogate what they've already got better, then suddenly they get switched on to actually using the stuff. So that would be another kind of real simple, you know, use case that a lot of businesses could use this for.
Right, thanks, Gary. Come back to yourself, Mark. You touched a couple of times earlier on there about the AI strategy and encouraging folk to have a look at that. Can you discuss the insights and ongoing developments in AI and chatbot technology, for that matter, that small business owners should be aware of? You know, where are things going? What do we need to be alert to?
Yeah, I'm going to hold my hand up and say I'm not an expert in this area, but I think, you know, the AI and chatbots tend to be helping at the moment. You see the adoption in things like customer service and support, document management, and data analysis, and you're getting more and more access to these tools. So, for example, Microsoft are incorporating Copilot. It's going to be released this year as an integrated AI system for Microsoft 365 applications, etc. So this is going to become more and more of the norm. So the more you can kind of familiarize yourself with what's going on, the better, I think. And again, back to my point of keep close to the fire, keep close to communities that have maybe that expert insight and knowledge and are happy to share through whether it's Business Gateway connections or, like I say, Data Lab, and we've got a really strong support ecosystem in Scotland actually in this space. So, you know, I think partly it's just about awareness of where to go and who to speak to and what to draw on. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Brilliant. And you want to add to that, Gary?
Yeah, just on the on Chat GPT specifically, because that's the main focus point of today. I mean, some of the very recent introductions to that tool, again, can be amazing for small business benefit. Previously, all of the input had to be text, so you had to type everything in, and you got text output. It now accepts voice integration, and it does it remarkably well. It really does. It's one of the best kind of voice, even with my broad Scottish accent. It understands pretty much everything, and the tone and the context, and the, you know, it to some extent picks up a little bit on sarcasm and humour. And so an example application of the text side of it, which I think, again, I've demonstrated this. I've used this with my teenage son. Interview preparation. You know, I've given demos for months now whereby you can type in, you know, through text, you know, example interview questions and what your response might be, but to deliver that verbally, that's more of a lifelike, realistic situation. So you can suddenly have ChatGPT interrogate you on any topic, and your response back to it, and it reacts and gives you a response. You can have real-time conversation with it. It sounds like I lead a very sad life, doesn't it? I don't spend all day talking to this thing, I promise. But not only can it, you know, be your kind of interview coach, as it were, after the interview, it can then give you feedback on how you did. And again, it's not just text; it's more human. It's spoken back to you, Gary. Your response to question number 2, you should have maybe talked more about your experience and blah. And it's very good at doing that type of thing on a voice level. And again, that's a fairly new thing. The other new thing, which is pretty cool in the tool as well, is you can now give it images as your input. So you can upload any image, and the simple demo I started doing, I used to do a demo where I would say, look, I can ask it, and I would type it. I would say, write me an HTML web page to generate a random number picker, and it would generate instantly code that was a lottery picking website type approach. Now, I don't know if you can see this through the screen. Now I upload that image live, Gary's random I upload one image, and it creates that as an accurate, professional looking web page in seconds, just from reading my scribbles on the page, and it knows what I'm trying to do with that. And that type of thing is fascinating, and it's only getting better and more amazing. And you can tell I get pretty passionate about all of this stuff, but sometimes it blows me away what it can actually do first time without me having to correct it. It's always and ever evolving.
And the fact that you're still sitting here in the webinar, Gary, would kind of suggest to me that your lottery picker is not working.
I didn't say it predicted the results. I said it built me a picker.
To be fair.
That would be a product people would buy. Yeah. Can I just answer that just quickly here? And again, I'm not technical, so but I went to Business Gateway, put on an event in Aberdeen and talked exactly about this and talked about prompts, etc. And it's interesting to see now how you can utilize ChatGPT output to then drive other applications like Midjourney to create photorealistic images and things now. So that ability to then kind of pull together different apps to then drive an even higher value output is something to be mindful about as well, I think.
Brilliant. You kind of were talking there, you were holding up the picture. This is, I guess, what you were prompting the thing to do. What are the best prompts for Chat GPT? Can I come to Maya on that one first?
So I actually use the role request result that I think I learned from Business Gateway, and it works really well. And you can tailor it to pretty much anything, to any business. I'll let Gary talk a little bit more about the specifics of it, but yeah, I use that and it works really well for my business, and would definitely recommend it. It's so simple.
There we go. Okay, Gary, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, again, you know, to hear Maya say that she kind of follows the earlier advice, and it comes down to that, you know, is it garbage in, garbage out, or is it value in, value out? And the more detail you give this thing, a prompt should never be a give me an X, write me a prompt should be detail. There should be detail and quality in there. There should be context. It should know about you, your business, your intended output, what you're going to use this for, who it's for, who is the audience. And if you follow the kind of RRR kind of format, you're kind of steered to giving it that level of detail, which should give you some good output. The other thing that I would always say though is make sure you're using custom instructions, which is a setting in Chat GPT. You know, I always say, you know, you need to tell it who you are, what you do, but you can give it all of that in advance in what they call custom instructions. You'll find this in the settings of Chat GPT. So every prompt doesn't need to say, we are NSDesign, we help small businesses with their training, you know, we specialize in X, Y, and that can all be already in the memory, as it were, so that your actual prompts could get a little bit smaller and more concise, but the detail is still there. You've given it already in advance. So take advantage of custom instructions so that it's always off and running in the right direction for you. And the last thing, and this has kind of been alluded to already, Maya kind of steered a wee bit towards this earlier on. If you don't know what detail to give it, ask it to ask you questions. I mean, some of the best prompts are, I need you to help me write me a business plan, but in order to write me the best business plan, ask me up to 20 questions so that because I don't know what to tell you, so you tell me what I give you. And if you actually flip it like that, suddenly ChatGPT is asking you a whole load of important things so that it can then create you a brilliant output based on what it needs to know and the detail behind it. And very few people use it like that. They should, but it's a lovely tip. You know, flip the roles, get it asking you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, thank you, Gary. Mark, anything you want to add to that?
I'm not sure I can add any value on top of it. I think Gary's last piece is a really interesting and important one, actually, and I've seen some of the results come out from that approach. Works really well. I mean, in general, just remember that ChatGPT is kind of sensitive to the user's tone and the way you structure your requests. You know, you view it as a supportive friend in that sense, I suppose, rather than an objective source of the truth. And it will tend to give you what you're looking for, even if that comes across subconsciously in the way you're phrasing a question. So that kind of evolving conversational sort of approach, I think, is how you tease out the best output there.
Okay. You touched there, Gary, on you know, the voice and image. Question has come in: are voice and image options on the free version or just the paid one?
Very good question. Very good question indeed. I think at the moment it's only in the paid version. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. The great thing about the way they tend to do things, and if they don't, please don't shoot the messenger here. They tend to use the paid for users as a little bit of a beta. You know, they give us these things, they play with them, they improve them, they make them better, and then they start rolling them out into more general usage of them. So again, directly within the tool itself, I think both the image and the voice are paid options. If somebody wants to correct me on that, I will gladly stand corrected. My apologies for not knowing exactly. The other thing as well to always check is ChatGPT is now at some level integrated into Microsoft Bing and indeed the Microsoft Edge web browser in its own right. It's also slowly but surely making its way into every Microsoft product. And so play with some of these tools. So you can get it to create images using Bing and things like that. So it's not all just the paid for version. Some of these things you'll gain early access to if you're accessing it through Bing as well. Again, just adding to the confusion and complexity that a lot of people get stuck on. So it's sometimes not as simple as it should be. But if you can gain access to try these things, definitely give them a go.
Brilliant. Okay. We've got a few minutes left. Very few minutes left, because it's been a fascinating discussion. I want to kind of turn lastly to, in your opinions, the kind of future prospects of AI and how small businesses can prepare for those changes. But I want to wrap round that a question that's come in. Someone understands that Chat GPT can be a great tool for training and researching, but in terms of creativity and analysis, by increasingly relying on Chat GPT in the long term, aren't we impoverishing our innate human creativity and analysing capacities? So thinking about that and thinking about the future prospects of AI, what would you say to that, Mark?
Oh, thanks for coming to me first on that one. So that's an interesting question. It's interesting actually, because going back to that original piece about AI taking the place of humans and human expertise, right? In reality, if you think about things like generative AI, it is drawing on human source data. It starts to degrade if it is then just cyclically working on stuff it's created itself, right? So the human creativity needs to be there to then, however you're using these tools, at the source of it, there has to be that element of creativity. I suppose the argument is it replacing our human ability to create, or is it actually back to enhancing us? So one of our data scientists called that out, that he uses it to prompt him when he's looking to be creative. So I suppose that argument works both ways with that, I would suggest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maya, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, in terms of kind of the future of AI, it's constantly changing, and I don't know what that will look like in even a year's time. From a small business perspective, I think it's about kind of continuing to learn, staying up to date about the changes. There's so much support on offer, and that we've already talked about Business Gateway, and staying on top of that so that you can be kind of leaning into the new technology, to the new updates as they come, rather than leaning out, especially in terms of kind of business efficiency and improving, the admin side of the business and the things that maybe you don't really enjoy doing anyway. And then I would also say, just kind of as a last point, about being aware about kind of the ethical and the environmental concerns. I know Mark spoke about that a wee bit earlier, yeah. But as kind of AI evolves, so will that, and kind of keeping on top of that and what the options are in terms of moving to more ethical, more sustainable, less resource draining, and yeah, kind of keeping on top of how you can use AI as responsibly as possible as well.
Brilliant, thanks Maya. Now the challenge here, Gary, is very succinctly, you're going to have to try and contribute to that answer as well.
Right, well, there's a great quote in a recent CIPR, Chartered Institute of Public Relations strategy document, which basically said ignoring AI isn't an option. At the same time, it seems wrong-headed and defeatist to assume AI will remove the need for human PR practitioners unless we let it. And I think that's a great kind of way to finish. I think it was the founder of OpenAI himself that said, AI will not steal your job. A person who is comfortable using AI will probably steal your job. These are skills we all need to learn. It's not going away. It's here forever. It's going to be integrated into every possible system most people are using in their day-to-day business lives. You need to get better trained on it. You need to get your staff on board. You need to, embrace this thing to assist your business. But maybe I'll finish with that. It is just a tool in the toolbox. It's not the be all and end all. Mark made a brilliant comment earlier about how, Chat GPT is now helping other tools and generating, and it's about joining the dots. Where does this fit into your business toolkit of resources? It's a damn good one. You know, it's the Swiss Army knife, in my opinion, but it is just another tool. So do you know what?
Yeah.
Use it to help, but don't obsess over it. Don't think it will solve all your problems. Don't think you'll never need to be creative again. You still need to drive it. There's humans behind it all.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listen, we're going to have to draw it to a close there. We could talk much longer. We're over time as it is, so I do apologise to listeners out there. We've gone over, but I think, and I'm sure you'll agree, it's been incredibly useful. Maya, Mark, Gary, thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar. Apologies if we didn't get to answer your question, but we will follow them up, and obviously we'll circulate the various details of the resources that we've talked about and the fantastic offer that Mark has made for us today. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe, look after yourselves, look after your loved ones. Cheers for now.
Bye, everyone.